Dee, I love the theme you came up with for this week's episode.
So do I. It's been fun planning it. I almost said planting.
I always spell planning with a T.
Me too.
Should we tell people what the theme is?
It's Grandmacore.
And should we describe what Grandmacore is?
No, I think our listeners will figure it out.
Okay, I'm going to get us started then. Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I'm in the process of downsizing, or you could say right-sizing, my country garden.
We are Garden Angelists because we love gardening, and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But let's move on to this week's episode. So, Carol, you have quite the long list of stuff you did.
You know what? It's not as much as one would think. So this is Friday. We recorded last Saturday, and I bragged about how I had enjoyed a very nice week of weather.
Yep.
And then Sunday morning,
It all went to iceberg, didn't it? Just like
went to
here.
iceberg. Woke up Sunday morning and had to shovel the snow off the driveway. But anyway, I've finished off most of my microgreens. I got a real nice crop of celery microgreens that I'm going to put on my salad today.
Really? You know who else is doing microgreens?
No, who?
Matt Mattis has got a whole bunch of them in his greenhouse, and he's using those little mats that you tried.
Right.
And I wanted to say to him, watch out for the gnats, Matt, but I didn't.
Well, he's grown in a completely different environment than I am, so he probably won't have as much trouble with them. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. He may not. Anyway, so you made more.
I'm going to. I need to. But anyway,
Oh, you haven't yet. Okay.
I ordered some pelargoniums, which are commonly called geraniums. You know, I sent you that list and said, I'm about to order these.
Yes, and I said, some of those I know, and some of them I've never grown before. And where did you order those from?
I ordered them from Select Seeds, and I was going to order 5. And then I realized that shipping is the same for 6.
So you ordered 6.
So, of course, I ordered 6. Looked up several lost ladies of garden writing and ended up ordering 3 more used gardening books.
Yeah.
And I put that new battery in my truck.
Good for you. Good job.
Thank you.
I try not to do anything that I don't have to do, but I do more than I used to.
It was so easy. And I bought the battery at Costco yesterday. And so it was pretty easy. I did it first thing this morning. Honestly, take off the negative, take off the positive, take out the battery, set the new battery in, connect the positive, connect the negative, start it up. All good.
Cool. Good.
How about you?
Awesome. So what did I write down? Because I just wrote it. You'd think I would remember. Okay, so I still don't have those stupid lights installed, but we did get the greenhouse hooked up to the large propane tank, which my husband told me so we were using 100-pound bottles. That's what we were using.
Yes.
And we would have to switch them out, and they would go out like in the middle of a snowstorm because that's what they do. And you can't really tell on the gauge if they're full or not because the gauges don't work that well. So I think there's like 100 bottles in this big propane tank.
Right.
So I won't have to ever switch it out. And the reason it was hard to put in is the regulator was messed up. So the plumber had to come back and fix the regulator because we knew it was on their end because we were able to hook up the 100-pound bottles. So we knew it was them. So he came back and it took him all afternoon, but he fixed it. And then the next thing we'll do in there is as soon as it's warm again, which is next week, supposedly, we will go in and fix those vents because Bill's a lot stronger than he was last week.
Excellent.
And the week before. And he's going to rehab today, so he's doing a lot better.
Good.
And then let's see, what else did I do? Oh, I watered in the greenhouse, checked for diseases and insects. I did not start more seeds, but maybe I will. And then I watered the houseplants. It's been super cold, and I've been helping Bill keep those bird feeders filled and, shooing away the stupid starlings, which there's one sitting on the lights as we speak. And that's about it. Just, winter stuff.
It is.
I'm
Now,
reading.
I filled up my feeders again this morning, and I don't want to jinx myself, but I've yet to see starlings over there.
I think it's because you don't have a lot of tree cover. I have a lot of starlings, and my friend Jennifer, we had a long chat the other day, and I guess it was yesterday, and she goes, Dee, I've never seen a starling. She lives in a meadow. That's why she doesn't have any starlings. Oh, but I have something exciting to share.
What's that?
All right. So at my fountain, they aren't there right now, but the fountain that sits on the deck, I saw 6 bluebirds in
Wow.
that fountain
That's
day before
that's
yesterday.
amazing.
And I shared the picture on Instagram on my story because it is exceptional that we have that many. But this lady goes, if you would just stick your camera between the bars, you could get a better picture. And I started laughing and I said, if I stick my phone between the bars, they'll all fly away.
Yes. Which
They're
reminds me,
very skittish, very skittish.
they are skittish. Which reminds me that Menards has a trail cam for sale,
Mm-hmm.
on sale. And I always thought of putting one out there by the vegetable garden just to see what critters come through. It'd be mostly raccoons and stuff. So
We have one. We never look at the footage, but don't ask me why. We just don't.
I'm gonna,
Because we're weird.
I
Because
might
we
get
just
it.
don't do it.
I'm thinking
But we
about it.
put one up. We put one up because of the deer. We were trying to figure out what was getting into my pots and stuff. But there's this one lady that's on Instagram who I follow, whose name I can't think of right this moment, but she has a camera on her bird bath
Cool.
and she sees really cool things. So I really enjoy her. So let's play favorites. What's your favorite?
So did I mention a while back that I made a little Lego bouquet that's dandelions?
No, is it a wildflower bouquet?
Yeah, it comes in a little kit and there's like $5 a kit and you get one flower, one seed head, and one like grass stalk thing. And so I'll show you a picture of it.
Okay, that is just about as cute as it could ever
So
get.
this
We
is
need to put that on our,
yeah.
we need to do a little clip of this because that is
Yeah,
adorable.
and I'll find it on Amazon. It's a little $5 pack and that's 3 packs worth. Isn't that the darlingest
I
thing?
need that.
Of course, I
Yeah,
have
that
it in a
is really
crystal
darling.
vase.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not? Why not make the dandelion haters have fits, right?
Anyway, it's been so snowy that there's nothing else horticulturally going on other than, new books arriving and truck is ready to go get the pansies as soon as they're ready. How about your favorite?
My favorite is my baby nasturtiums came up. And you know what? There is something really, really cool about baby nasturtiums because their foliage is gray, blue, green.
Yes.
It is so pretty and so new. And all I'd had coming up at before that was my small scattering of pansies that the mouse didn't eat.
Uh-huh.
And then I had a few calendula. And then I had, some onions. Onions are boring.
They
They're
are.
boring. Then these little nasturtiums came up and it was like, whoa.
Nice. Well, we'll take a picture of my Lego dandelions. We'll take a picture of your nasturtium seedlings. We will show them as per our custom on our newsletter, which if you're listening and you haven't subscribed to that yet, what is wrong
You
with
should.
you?
Yeah. It's a good newsletter. It contains all our links that we can't get in our show notes, which you guys don't go look at the show notes anyway, because you're usually in your cars or gardening when you are on the
Exactly.
treadmill. Nobody looks at the show notes on
No,
podcasts. I don't.
no.
So this little Substack newsletter is just a little bit of gold. I go back and look at them and get stuff off of them all the time.
Oh, yeah, me too. Question of the week. You got it.
I got it night before last, and it's a long question. You ready?
Well, he broke it up into
You
3
ask the
questions.
question.
I'll ask each question. So this came from a listener in the state of Washington. So he is in a much warmer zone than I am in. Anyway,
William.
he says, can I just plant using the soil, some or all, that is in my containers now? Dee?
And my answer was, it depends on whether it is soil or potting soil. If it is old potting soil, I would remove 1/3 of it. He did not want to use all new potting soil because he's on a fixed income.
Oh, I can
So I'd
imagine.
remove the top third, and then I'd add fresh potting soil to the top. But in the picture, I couldn't tell what was in these pots. So if it's old garden soil or old who knows what soil, you need to replace it because garden soil doesn't drain like potting soil, because potting soil isn't really made of soil. Potting soil is made of aerated, lovely little things like either peat moss or coir and wood products. There was a whole, as an aside, there was a whole discussion on the Alpha Gal gardening group about forest, what do they call it? Forest products in soil, because that's a new thing, as we've discussed before, because they're trying to not use so much peat moss. And somebody said, oh, I'd be afraid of that because, deer, they poop in the woods. And I said, well, you need to be more afraid of that bone char than the deer, the occasional deer that might have come by the forest. Because first of all, I do not think soil companies, potting soil companies, are going through the forest and scooping up wood products. They're using composted wood products from these big factory.
Yeah, they're using the
pine tree
byproducts, the
deals.
sawdust and things like that. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the second question.
Yes.
Our weather won't get above a regular 50 degrees for a few months. Can I plant anything now? He's bulbs, plants, seeds, zone 8B to 9A. And you said,
And I wouldn't plant anything right now. The weather's still very, very changeable. But I also don't live in Washington, the state of Washington, or Washington, D.C. I told him that he might contact his county master gardeners at their helpline, because almost all master gardener programs have a helpline. That's how master gardeners get some of their hours. And I said they would know his last freeze date, but it should be coming up soon for their zone.
yeah, and I would think in his zone, he's almost ready to plant pansies and violas.
I think he is too. But I hate to give advice for Washington State.
I
For
do
one
too.
thing, the coastal part of it is way different than the interior.
It is.
And I don't know enough.
So
Okay,
that
what's
would
next?
answer this third question, which is what would be a good list of flowers I could plant in these containers either now or when it warms up? You sent him right back to the local master gardener group. No
I
way.
did.
No way I'm answering that.
And then I also told him that I have a blog post that in my zone, I plant a lot of tropicals after the freeze date, although I do plant pansies too. And then, so I do the pansies early because they don't last all summer for me. So I do tropicals later. And I'm getting ready to do a great Instagram. Well, I don't know if it's great. I'm getting ready to do an Instagram reel that says, here's this purple fountain grass versus this variety when they're in their infant state. So people
Right.
can identify them, because I overwintered two different kinds in my greenhouse.
Excellent.
Anyway, that's all.
All right. I'm going to do a quote so we talk about our flower topic. If winter has the courage to turn into spring, who says I can't bloom just the same? And it was signed SRW, which we found out was Sean Wilmot. She's a poet and she is on Instagram as SRW Poetry.
Yeah, and we loved that. I thought that was beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So, Grandmacore, it's a new thing. It's been all over TikTok and Instagram, and it's all these young women and men who decide that they're going to do things like grandma did. And sometimes it's interior, like your home. And I had to giggle because I've been Grandmacore since my 20s. I just didn't know it was the name.
Yeah, I think I've been Grandmacore for a long time. And when I think of Grandmacore, I think about my grandmother in the 60s and 70s and, my niece that's 11, that would be my sister. And I don't think she's necessarily Grandmacore, but in many ways she is Grandmacore because she does crafts and, makes things and, decorates with things that have meaning in her home.
So we decided to do Grandma Plant Core, Grandma Garden Core.
Grandma Garden Core.
And so what kind of things would you plant flower wise if you were trying to achieve the Grandma Garden Core Floral Edition?
Well, first thing I would be a great big old cottage style garden with all kinds of big blousy flowers. And you listed a bunch: roses, camellias, if you live in that climate, peonies big time, hydrangeas, hollyhocks, and of course our beloved pansies and violas. You wrote
Mhm.
roses, roses,
Yeah, so
roses, roses.
more roses, yeah. So I said heirloom and tough flowers, and there are now modern roses that look like their ancestors, but sometimes they have better disease resistance, and that way you don't have naked roses all year long. And so one of those series is the Parfuma series, and it's spelled Parfuma. And there's a bunch of them, and I have Parfuma Earth Angel. I'd say that's the most popular of that series. And I can't say enough nice things. For one thing, in the Grandmacore Garden or Grandma Garden Core, you would want flowers that smell good,
You
and
would.
perfume does.
Yes. And we for some reason left lilacs off our list.
Oh my word, we can't leave off lilacs. So common lilacs smell amazing. I am not so big on the Korean lilacs for scent because I have two of them and I think they kind of stink. But I have to admit, they're very easy to grow.
They are very easy to grow. And so I had a city grandma and a country grandma. And so I can still envision city grandma. So in front of her porch were the Van Hoot spirea, beautiful
Hmm.
white flowers. On the north side of her house, she had old fashioned August lilies, hostas, and a big bunch of lily of the valley that we always picked from.
Right.
In the back
And
is a,
we have to say quickly that Lily of the Valley and also Inspirea Van Hootii also considered kind of aggressive and
I don't think Spirea van Hootii is considered aggressive. It's considered old fashioned, and they've done so much breeding of Spireas that there are probably better ones. But this one blooms
there are
white,
really pretty ones. It's
blooms white.
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I
Um,
was thinking of Bridal Veil, and I don't remember which one Bridal Veil is, but I can look it up while you talk. Anyway, Lily of the Valley is invasive in some states. It is not invasive here, as far as I can
it
tell.
is not invasive in
And
Indiana. So in the back, she would have had a gigantic snowball bush,
which
uh,
is an Eastern viburnum.
some kind of there was an apple tree back there. So there was an apple tree that bloomed. The lawn was filled with violets, plain and simple.
Oh, I was right. So Spirea Van Hootii is
Yes,
the bridal wreath, and it is considered extremely aggressive because it gets really big. But you know what? I still see it. Here's my problem with all spireas that are of this group. And there's a bunch of these white ones. They don't bloom very long, but
they
they really
don't.
are pretty when they do.
They don't. And it's like there's a moment in spring where maybe the spirea is blooming, there's violets in the lawn, the lily of the valley are blooming. You've kind of got this perfection moment. But really, I
Hmm.
mean, a grandma garden, you can plant stuff that is takes you from early spring. We talk about daffodils, often found in old
Yep.
homesteads where the house is long gone, but the daffodils still bloom. So you got to have
Yeah,
daffodils.
daffodils are very tough plants. I don't remember my grandmother's doing any kind of tulips because they would have considered those too expensive for one season, you know.
Right?
But they also grew hyacinths. That's another one that they really loved. And and also Leucojum estivum, which is summer snowflake, not to be confused with galanthus. They grew those. So anything that is tough, scented, blousy, easy, fluffy.
Yes. And somewhere around here, and I do not know where, but I had my aunt who was more of a gardener than my mom. They were sisters.
Hmm.
I had her describe for me all the plants that she knew that grew in grandma's yard and garden and send that to me. And so somewhere I have that. And I'm like, it would take like disassembling this entire room to figure out where that is. That's,
I don't think I do that. I can't believe you never put it on your blog in all those years.
you know what? I might have. And that's another place I can look online to see if I did. And I have, so, but inside, did your grandmothers have houseplants?
Yeah, my grandmother had African violets.
Yes, that's
And
the one.
I wrote a whole, it was either an article or a blog post for Better Homes and Gardens about not your grandma's violets, because there's
Uh-huh.
new ones. But that was a long time ago too.
Yeah, my grandmother had all kinds of African violets. And I wrote on my newsletter last week, my weekly newsletter
Hmm.
of important nothings. My lily of the valley, listen to me. My African violets seem to just up and die on me. I don't know why. I just can't keep
Huh.
them long. It's just one of
Well,
those things.
they're hard. They're hard.
But
So,
I don't beat
I
myself
thought
up
of two
too
things
bad.
to add to vegetables. I wouldn't either.
No, we're still on flowers. Come back to flowers,
Yeah,
Dee. Come back to flowers.
I thought of two things we didn't put in for our
Now,
vegetable.
another houseplant that I have, and my cousin gave it to me. It's an aloe vera,
Yes.
and she says it once belonged to my great grandmother. But
Cool.
I asked my aunt on that side. I said, "Is that true?" And she says, "I don't think so." But anyway, it's a nice story.
It would be very rare if if your great grandmother had one, unless
Well,
she went down to Mexico and got it or something. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. That would have been, it would have been in the early 1900s.
The thing is aloe vera, I know, became really popular in the 60s because people used it for burns. And
Yes.
that's another thing is they're very practical. Grandmother gardening is practical.
Yes.
Lots of divisions, lots of here, let me share this pass along plant with you.
Right. Right. Exactly. And there was one other flower that I thought of while we were talking that is Grandma Core. And of course, now that we have paused, can I remember it?
No, because that's how it is. You'll think
Uh,
of it when we talk about vegetables.
yes. So let's go ahead and talk about vegetables after you do the quote.
In February, there's everything to hope for and nothing to regret. And that's from Patience Strong.
That is true. Grandma's vegetable garden. And so now I have to turn to country grandma.
My two were town grandmas, but one grandma had a huge vegetable garden, and her husband, who was my grandfather, he was not a very nice man. And she had one time had a flower garden and a vegetable garden, and he turned under her whole flower garden and turned it into a compost pile.
That is not a very nice man. So, country grandma, now, again, this is going to sound like a theme. I had this other aunt on the other side. I had her write down all the stuff they grew in the vegetable garden and send that to me.
Uh-huh.
And again, it's somewhere in this room. I know not where. And I'll get a burn my saddle and try to find those. But they actually had two vegetable gardens in the country. They had
Did?
they had one up near the house where they would grow things like lettuces and stuff that they were just going to cut
Mm-hmm.
and eat it right away. And then they would have what I would call a production garden where they grew rows of rows of peas, not sweet peas, rows of green peas, rows of corn. They would have a big sweet corn patch. They would have rows of
Yeah.
climbing green
This was
beans,
all
bush
for
green,
canning.
and they would can like nobody's business. They would can.
Yeah, I had a grandmother who canned like crazy out of her very small garden I mean, it's smaller than mine, but she was really good at crop rotation and succession planting, and they worked that compost and the chicken manure into the compost and left it. I mean, they were really good gardeners. And so, yeah, she grew all this stuff. So, shall we go and talk about what you would grow if you were in grandma's garden?
So in grandma's garden, so you can imagine some sort of cross between your own grandmother and say Tasha Tudor, and go look her up if you don't know who she is. But wearing a cotton dress and having a big apron on top of that cotton dress that you could lift up and hold produce in. If you went out to get a bunch of tomatoes and there were way more, you'd kind of lift that apron. You could fill it up with
My grandmother
tomatoes
did that.
and
Yeah.
bring them in. But lots of herbs for snipping because you just didn't go to the store and buy dried herbs. So if you wanted to have
Mm-mm.
chives or thyme or one of those herbs or basil or whatever to season with, you were going to
Right.
grow it.
Right. And then you would grow lots and lots of green beans. And you usually, I mean, they had started using the freezer some when I was a kid, but really they still canned a lot.
They did. They did.
So
And
they snapped green beans on the front porch. And for years, I thought that the only way to eat a green bean was to snap off that end, snap off the other end, which would be the blossom end, and then snap it in the middle because that's how I was taught. I don't know why they didn't eat the blossom end, but they didn't.
well, the blossom end, I think, contains that's where most of the nutrients end up.
Yeah, and it's got more flavor,
But
but
city
they didn't
grandma,
cook like that.
she would buy vegetables from the vegetable man. And I'll tell you what, if the green beans went dry and were rattling in the pods, you did not just compost those the way you and I would.
No,
Ooh,
no,
you shelled those out, those shelling beans, and then you would make something out of them, or you could actually grow
or
them
have
next
shelling
year.
beans. Yeah. And then of course you had bushes and bushes of tomatoes and that my grandmother primarily grew what were considered modern hybrids at the time, and one of them was Big Boy. And that was because she wanted to can them. And so she wanted all of them to come at one time. She wanted that disease resistance. She believed in
Exactly.
better living through chemicals because she didn't know any better, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, my grandparents, they grew some for canning, but I remember those big slicers in the middle of summer go down in big
Yeah, we
slicers,
did too.
big
And you know
yellow
what? I should
slicers.
say she must have grown some heirlooms because I have that picture of her with her hand up showing how tall her tomato plants
We're
are.
going to show
And
that picture,
so
aren't
she
we?
grew some of both. Yeah, I've got it. I've got 2 copies of it. So you betcha. And then I thought of a couple of things that we didn't add at first, which was my grandmother always grew in the spring Bloomsdale longstanding spinach.
Yes.
And she grew black seeded Simpson lettuce, which I adore even now and still grow. And she always made she always had spring onions. So when we would go visit her, if it was at the right time of the year, that salad, that wilted lettuce salad was on the table. And I've written about it on the blog before, so I will link to it.
Well, do you remember, Dee, that I read the book by Hal Borland and he talked about his wife grew the best lettuce 2 years
Yeah.
ago? And I went looking for that Great Lakes variety. And
Yes.
it was actually really pretty good. And so those old varieties, if you can find them and you can go to places like Southern Exposure Seed
Southern
Exchange,
Seed Exchange.
Seed Savers Exchange, those are places they still, if you seek them out, those old varieties, some of them are pretty good. Now, some of them, there are better things to grow today, but some of them, that lettuce was pretty
Mhm.
darn good.
Potatoes. My grandmother grew potatoes and she'd rob off the new potatoes before the main season ones came in. You know how people did.
Right.
And then she would take those and she'd cook them with her green beans and onions. And then she would take them out and she'd fry them in a pan.
Uh huh.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure it was bacon grease. It was the best thing
Would
ever.
have to be bacon grease.
Yes, that's all they used. And then corn on the cob. We talked about how you and I used to sit and shuck corn on the cob with our family members.
Yeah, I didn't do much shucking. There was their days of canning everything were a bit gone when I came along, but they'd moved to a house away from the farm and everything. But they did cut all that corn and then they would freeze it. And I know
Yeah.
my country grandma, there was a place in the town that had a freezer and you'd rent space in that freezer for your
How
frozen.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, all my family members had great big freezers and they definitely used them. And the corn on the cob was funny because I remember distinctly doing it at my aunt and uncle's house. They lived down the street from my maternal grandmother, Granny. And so we went over there one day and we were going to have dinner. And my aunt said, go out and get the corn. And so they got the corn because they could grow really good corn. And it was like, shuck it immediately and get it in that boiling water. Remember those days?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was
Actually,
before
have the
SSE
water
corn.
boiling first, then go get the corn.
Yep. Because it
Which,
would turn to starch and you
yes.
didn't want that.
The other thing that my grandmother grew and they ate like crazy is okra.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okra. I didn't add that one in. I love okra.
Okra. And I swear my aunt and uncle that are still alive, if their garden really consists of three things: okra, beans, and tomatoes. They're
Well,
older now.
yeah, that's kind of the three, that you want to have. I think every gardener, like as they get older, they never let go of the tomatoes, you know?
No, no.
because we love tomatoes. So you said wearing a big apron, which we discussed, and I saw, if I can find them on Instagram, I saw some really stylish aprons. Since my phone is, I'm sure, listening to me, it will cough those up for me later today.
It will cough those up for you later today.
Yesterday, it coughed up a whole bunch of conspiracy theories about tick bites. Go figure.
Go figure.
I was on that tick panel, and no, we did not really talk about conspiracy theories, but my phone thought I needed to know about them. Great, thank you. All right, anything else you want to say about Grandmacore veggie style?
That I think a lot of young people are growing Granny's vegetable garden, and that's all good.
And it's adorable because they think they invented it. And every generation thinks they invent stuff that the other generation already did.
Exactly.
It's just how we all are.
Yeah.
But it's new to you guys, just like sourdough. All right, ready for the next quote?
Some books are so familiar that reading them is like being home again. Louisa May Alcott.
And on our bookshelf is Pansies, How to Grow, Reimagine, and Create Beauty with Pansies and Viola by Brenna Estrada. And we received this from the publisher, and I'm so glad.
Last fall, when they said this was coming out, we said, could we please have review copies? Because Carol's obsessed with pansies.
And I'm so glad we did.
Plus, well, a little aside, I told you the post office in Indianapolis has some extreme problems right now. They moved to a new distribution center, and in the process, the mail is, it's a bigger, better place. The mail is stacked up. And so
the mail is stuck. You sent me a video of how crazy that was, like piles and piles of mostly parcels.
Yes. And so 2 books that you have gotten for us to review are still wandering around the post office. And I have to laugh about the one that you got. And then we'll get back to pansies.
Which one?
It came from Lebanon, Indiana, which is 37 miles north of here. I watched. They sent it to Grove City, Ohio, which is a suburb of Columbus. And then they sent it to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati sent it back to the Indianapolis distribution center. It sat there for 10 days. And then it went to another distribution center in Indianapolis. And the notice says it's moving through the system and it's arriving late. I'm like, I could have driven up there the day
3 times.
On the 6th. I could have driven up there, picked up the book, and driven home faster. Anyway, I don't know. It is crazy. But Pansies, so excited. This is a beautiful book, whether you are obsessed with pansies or not. Would you not agree, Dee?
I totally agree. And I don't know, it's just delightful.
It is. And
it's delightful.
Brenna, we should say, worked at the Floret Flower Farm, and she was inspired by all the pansies. And so the book is really, really lovely. Photographs are exquisite. And so she has a history of the pansy and viola, and she quotes many of the books that I already have on my bookshelf. And I thought I still think I have more books than she does about the genus viola, but she's got all the important.
You need to write her and tell her that you found some more. You be that irritating reader.
Just no, kidding. I'm not irritating. I'm just saying she has all the good pansy books.
I know you're not.
And then she's got it's only 5 chapters. First is the history, which is, I knew some of that history, but I learned some new things. And then chapter 2 is about growing pansies and violas. So a lot of tips on starting seeds and the right temperature. And, they like it cool, they cool feed, and really how to get them established so that they have stronger roots. So cutting the back.
Growing your own from seed, it's really easy to get them established and have really good root systems because you're doing them at the right time, which is good for all plants, frankly.
Yes.
And so I want to show you this one. I'm growing this one from seed.
That's beautiful. It's called Delta Light
Pure Light Blue.
Yes.
And I grew it last year. It's just a perfect blue with an icy edge and a little yellow dot in the center. And it looks really good in pots. I've grown a lot of these wild pansy varieties. I bet you have too.
I have. I buy the sorbet series up at the greenhouse. And then she has the frizzle sizzles. So the third
Yes,
chapter
and you grew frizzle sizzle lemonberry. Sorry, I moved on. You go ahead and talk about the third chapter.
is exceptional pansies and violas in cultivation today. That's where you are lost. And then
I am lost in it.
that goes like over 100 pages of them, and it's easy to get lost. And then the fourth chapter is the seasonal arrangements with pansies and violas, and those are just beautiful. And it shows them mixed in with other flowers. And then chapter 5 is out of the garden and into the home. And so in that particular chapter, she shows recipes with pansies and violas because they are edible, and some crafts.
They are edible.
Some apothecary type things. She's got a picture of them in the bath.
I bet she dried them. Did she dry them?
Probably dried them, yeah.
Put them as ornaments on her tree, like
but
I
it's
did. Because pansies are really great to dry.
She's got some resources for further reading. And so I will make sure that I have every viola book she has. Yes, I have that one. Yes, I have that one. Huh. I got all of them. She only listed one other
So
one.
she does violas and pansies in this.
Yes.
I'm now in the viola section.
Yes.
So I've grown almost all of these violas.
So she has a nice bibliography where you can get supplies for different like seed trays, handmade vases. Interesting. She lists Francis Palmer Potteries, a place for vases, handmade vases. And Francis has a new book, and we're probably going to get a digital copy to look at, Dee. So we'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
So anyway,
there's a whole section on black pansies.
There is.
Does she tell you how to grow long stems?
Yes.
My pansies do not have long stems.
She shows how to grow long stems for the cutting garden. Yes.
Okay.
She has some information
Good to
on
know.
that. Because when some of the pictures, I'm like, wow, those are long stems. And so she does explain how to do all that. So if you like pansies and violas, or if you just like a beautiful book about flowers, I highly recommend Pansies. I love this book, Dee. I'm very grateful to Timber Press for sending it to us. I would have bought it anyway.
You're so excited. You haven't let me hardly talk.
I'm sorry, Dee. Go ahead. My apologies.
It's okay. You're wound up, and I get it. It is a beautiful book. I can almost smell the pansies.
Oh, yeah.
That's how beautiful it is. And this cake that she shows is gorgeous. The macarons are beautiful. The cocktail is gorgeous. So I just can't tell you how pretty this is.
Yes.
I'm really glad she wrote it, and I'm really glad they published it.
I am too.
And sent it to us.
I'm so pleased with how they laid it out. Like even the inside of the cover, look how they used the pansies to...
The end papers.
The end papers. That's what they're called. End papers. I didn't know what that was called for a minute.
The end papers are definitely pansies, and they're very well done. I mean, the whole thing it is definitely a gift book to either give yourself or give a friend.
Exactly.
Do you want to repeat the title?
I can do that for us, Dee. Pansies, How to Grow and Reimagine and Create Beauty with Pansies and Violas by Brenna Estrada. Thank you again, Timber Press. Can you tell one of us is really excited and one of us is excited?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing book, and I'm actually going to set it out. I have a deal that I display garden books on my table in my living room, my sofa table, and this one's going to go on there this afternoon.
Very nice.
And I bet you my granddaughter loves it.
I bet she does too.
So I'm going to do the next quote if that's okay. Are we ready to move on? Every house needs a grandmother in it, Louise May Alcott. And now we're to our dirt, which is all about Grandmacore.
Yeah.
As if you didn't know already. And so Grandmacore style is in, and we have some links for it. And you wrote, "We are here for it." I mean, I have had the giggles for weeks because, okay, so brass fittings are back in style.
Yes.
So all brass fittings for everything, which I had in my house, got rid of some of them, and now they're all back in style. Hanging your china, your fine china on the wall, like your Flow Blue, that went way out of style. Not for Dee Nash, it didn't.
Carol still has.
I have china hanging everywhere.
I don't have it everywhere, but I have a few plates hanging up in my kitchen nook area.
I mean, why wouldn't you? And then china cabinets, china place settings, beautiful tablecloths, just everything you can think of. And one I just ordered because I got the pink china. Ooh, I love my pink china. I just ordered from a company called April Cornell. They make dresses, housewares, etc. They had gorgeous yellow placemats with flowers on them.
Beautiful.
So anything floral.
Yes. And so we read in this one article, and we'll link to it. There are thousands of articles out there. It says,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
in recent years, a nostalgic and comforting home decor trend known as Grandmacore has surged in popularity, also referred to as granny chic. This trend draws inspiration from a grandmother's house's cozy and eclectic aesthetic. This style embraces floral patterns, vintage furniture, and a mixture of textiles and colors that evoke warmth and a sense of, and they wrote homeliness, and I think they meant hominess.
I think they meant hominess because homeliness would be
Ugly.
ugly, and it's not ugly. So there was something I had a thought of. Oh, so I watched this deal on Netflix, which I think you'll really like. And it was called, I'll have to look it up. Hang on just a second. Keep talking about Grandmacore.
So they said
it has to do
it's
with
kind of
that.
like, the pendulum of fashion swings, and it's swaying all the way over to those minimalist designs. And people have these bare Spartan rooms that are decorated in gray and white and sharp
Yeah.
lines. And people
Yeah.
are like, I would like to have things back for a simpler time. And they think about childhood visits to grandparents' houses and stuff, well curated stuff. We're not talking about like a hoarder's collection in the corner. We're talking about a warm place where you can tell this person lives here. They do crafts here. They enjoy books. They have house plants. The furniture is comfortable. It may be worn a little bit. It could be old. It could be handed down from somebody to somebody. Quilts on the beds, rugs on the floors,
rugs, quilts,
all of the above.
And I've collected all that stuff my whole life. So I have tons of it. So the thing I couldn't remember from Netflix was La Dolce Villa. See, it's a play, it's a word played on La Dolce Via, which is the sweet life, right? And so it's about a young woman who wants to buy one of those $1 houses over in Italy. And of course, it's just a sweet little film, but it is all that Grandmacore. And the funny thing was, there were 3 women that sat at the fountain every day, and their names were Antonia, all of them, Antonia. And they called them the 3 Antonias. And the 3 Antonias told the one guy that they wanted to be grandma influencers, and it tied us into the Grandmacore. So that's a really fun flight of fancy, beautiful Italian countryside, beautiful Italian interiors, all set in a little village, La Dolce Villa.
Well, and I told my sister that crafts all the time. She gave me a box of stuff that was from my grandmother's, and it has a bunch of these granny squares.
Yes.
I
those were so popular.
I don't know how to crochet, but I would like to be able to crochet a granny square. But here's the thing.
You can learn it. It's not hard.
I can. I use it as a coaster because when you're doing the podcast, if you set your mug down on the granny square, it doesn't make a big clank that Carol has to edit out.
Right. Unlike mine, which is on a stone. Sorry.
Anyway, that's our dirt. We just wanted to go on and on about Grandmacore.
Which we just had a fun time. This has been one of our favorite episodes.
It has been. So I'm going to do a quote, and then we're going to talk about rabbit holes. There is only one happiness in life, to love and be loved, and that is George Sand.
So, do you want to hear about my rabbit hole, or you want to go first?
I do. It's going to make me hungry.
It fits right in with Grandmacore, doesn't it?
It does. It does indeed.
So mine's all about gluten-free sourdough bread and gluten-free sourdough everything, because as my youngest daughter told me the other day, it's a good thing you got on the sourdough train late, which I thought was kind of rude, but whatever. She said, because they've all perfected how to make sourdough gluten-free. And I was like, well, that's true. It's sad but true. So it took me 3 loaves to get it figured out, because with gluten-free sourdough in particular, you've got to be really careful to leave it out a while after you bake it and let it cool completely so you don't have a gummy interior. That was my first loaf, which was really sad. And so I joined several Facebook groups that have to do with just gluten-free sourdough, because the truth is, regular sourdough is easy in comparison, because wheat flour and rye flour, which is what you primarily use for sourdough, are really good at souring, whereas gluten-free flours aren't. So the cookbook that has helped me, I kept reading on these groups, 2 different ones, and one's Bakerita. That's one cookbook, which I don't have yet. And the other one is called Canil et Vanille, which is, if you translate it from French or Spanish because she's Spanish. She's Basque. It's cinnamon and vanilla in English, which is cute. Both of these people have blogs, which you can look at first, but her directions for sourdough, doing it gluten-free, are the best I've seen. And while I have my own starter, which I started from King Arthur flour, actually not King Arthur because it has stuff in it, but I started with the 1-to-1 flour, not the one from Bob's Red Mill, the other one that was made by the French Laundry guy. Anyway, I digress. The flour that I use has made a really good starter, but I am using all of her unusual flours. And here's something I learned about it. I'm telling you, it's quite the rabbit hole. A lot of people use buckwheat flour to make their starter.
Yes.
It turns it purple, and then they all freak out online because it's purple, because that's just how it looks.
And they think it's bad.
They think it's bad, but it's not bad. So I'm not doing that. Mine's a white flour. And the thing that helped me a great deal in her book is she makes a sponge and then she puts it in her oven with the light on because you got to have enough heat. So it's just in the oven off with the light on. That if she does that for 1 to 3 hours, then she mixes her dough and then she proofs it overnight in her fridge so that you don't overproof it. And it's exciting. So today I'm going to make her multi-seed dough, which has apricots in it. Yeah. But I'll bake it tomorrow because I'll overnight proof it.
So you have her cookbook.
I do. And I bought her second cookbook too. And she's got a third one coming out, I think. And her cookbook isn't just sourdough. It's called Canil et Vanille Bakes Simple. That's that one that I have. And it's all kinds of desserts, all kinds of stuff to do with your sourdough. Discard if you want to, but just regular desserts too. And her family is from the Basque region of Spain, which is, I think, northern Spain. And she is a really great baker. She really is. So she comes from a family of bakers. And actually, she did something totally different. And then I think she found out she was gluten-free. And so she started baking, which is really cool.
Excellent. So down in my rabbit hole are a bunch of geraniums, obviously.
Pelargoniums.
I bought the book, Pelargoniums. I bought the book, The Joy of Geraniums by Helen Van Pelt Wilson.
I want that.
Then I have
I want that.
I have another book coming called Gardens or Geraniums for Home and Garden by Helen K. Krause. That's coming, as long as the mail doesn't lose it. Good use copy. So, and then I've been reading stuff about Jane Austen. I'm still almost done with the biography that Lucy Worsley wrote. And then I got a new book called Jane Austen's Bookshelf. It just came out Tuesday by Rebecca Romney. And she's a rare book collector. And she used to be I don't know if the show's still on, Pawn Stars. She's the rare book collector that would show up to answer questions about rare books.
Yeah.
So she went on a hunt for the books that Jane Austen would have read. And
interesting.
It's kind of interesting. And you learn about book collecting. And then I got to thinking, we never read any Jane Austen in high school. Did you?
No, I read it in college. Yeah.
And I didn't take a bunch of English classes in college, obviously. But I did go through some old stuff because I'm like, I kept a few things from high school.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wonder if there's like a book list or something. I would have remembered a Jane Austen book. I found a writing assignment, Dee, and it said that I got an A+.
Oh, yeah? What was it?
I wrote an essay about why burpee seeds grow. And the teacher said that it was beautiful and like a fresh flower in the springtime.
Oh,
and
you had a nice teacher.
And then she said, do not show this grade to anyone on pain of losing points. And then she put a little skull and crossbones. She was just being funny.
Yeah. She sounds like she was delightful. You know what? I bet she was in Grandmacore.
She probably was.
I bet she was into it. You know what? My teachers, because I was one of those students who liked being a student, I had a teacher in college, and he was my favorite teacher. It was Jack Bickham. He was my favorite writing teacher. He would take in our short story class, he'd take mine and he'd always slam it down on my desk upside down. You know,
because it was a good grade.
Yeah, because he was like, and here's yours. And that time I think I was named I don't know, Arterburn, I think, my maiden name. So
it sounds like between letters from my aunts about gardening, it sounds like I've got all kinds of stuff around here. I don't keep all that much stuff. Compared to one sister, I don't keep much. Compared to another, I probably keep a lot. But anyway, so I'm going to keep reading those Jane Austen books. I might actually read a Jane Austen novel here pretty soon.
I think you should. You'll have to tell me which one you want to start with.
I have so many different paths of reading going right now. And it's like, just like, I'm going to sit down and read for 30 minutes and then get up and what's your garden commission?
So I'm going to install those stupid lights that I have not installed. And it's about time to sow some more seeds. And I should sow my Rebecca seeds now because you got to get them in the ground pretty fast so that they can get started. But I find it difficult to think about sowing seeds when the weather is 10 degrees, but it's going to be beautiful next week. And then I'm also going to do some reading. I'm reading that Julia Child war book. I think it's called Julia Child's Secret War. That's that novel that
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just say this about it. I'm really interested in the topic, the writing. It's okay.
Yeah. Like I told you, I started it, but I thought I can't finish this. I must move on.
Yeah. She's a little, anyway, go ahead. Tell me about yours.
So I'm going to start some more microgreens and possibly next week I'm going to get the sunroom kind of cleaned up to make room for seed starting. There's stuff on those shelves that I use.
Yeah.
I want to find some of that foam wrapping material, though I might just use heavy paper to make those rolls where they roll the dirt up in the roll and then they plant the seeds in it. And then the seeds can grow real deep roots in that roll. Remember we talked about that?
Right.
They call them snail rolls or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do that maybe and start some sweet peas and maybe some onions in those rolls, see how that goes. But I got to find the material for it. I'm going to watch the snow melt because it is expected to warm up after the weekend, which is lovely. I keep the bird feeders filled. I'll check out on the palace of propagation out there on the patio and see how they survived the snow just fine, I'm sure. And then, of course, I'm going to do a lot of reading.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's still winter.
Yes, it is.
So that's it, Dee. That is Grandmacore from us.
From a gardening point of view.
Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free newsletter, you'll get a link to listen to the podcast a day early and links to products we discuss. Some are affiliate links.
And if you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
Thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely chatting with all of you over the garden gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody. But Dee, I have a great idea for us.
What's that?
I'm going to slip this in at the end. We should totally write a Grandmacore gardening book.
Oh, heck yeah. We could totally do that.
All right.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.